The sprawling mansion in Bel Air glittered under a sky the color of crushed velvet, strung with a million tiny lights that seemed to mock the modest, handcrafted gifts clutched in my hands. It was Christmas Eve, and I, Anna Vance, 28 years old, was approaching my father David's annual holiday gathering. The presents, wrapped in simple brown paper with twine and sprigs of rosemary, looked painfully humble against the backdrop of imported Italian marble columns and the parade of luxury cars, a gleaming Rolls-Royce, a sleek Lamborghini, a collection of high-performance Porsches that lined the winding driveway. Little did my stepmother, Bethany, and her children, Chloe and Mark, know that I, the struggling artist they so often patronized, could buy this entire estate 10 times over. I kept my success a closely guarded secret, a deliberate shield, and a meticulous test. I needed to know who truly cared about me, not my money. My heart raced with a familiar blend of anxiety and steely resolve as I rang the ornate doorbell. Growing up, it had always been just my dad, David, and me. He was both my anchor and my sails after my mother Sarah died from a sudden illness when I was 8. Those 5 years alone with him were some of the happiest of my life. Dad had owned a thriving but modest local architectural firm, and while we weren't wealthy by Los Angeles standards, we had everything we needed. He taught me the value of hard work, the beauty of design, and how to find profound joy in simple things, sketching blueprints together, building elaborate Lego castles, or spending Saturdays exploring the hidden trails of Griffith Park. Every night, he would sit by my bed and tell me stories about my mother, keeping her memory alive through his words, making her presence a gentle, constant hum in our lives. Everything changed the year I turned 13. Dad met Bethany at a high-profile real estate convention. She was a tornado of glamour and ambition, a top-tier luxury real estate agent with a laugh that could shatter glass and a wardrobe that screamed old money. Though I later learned it was all meticulously curated. Newly acquired wealth. 6 months later, they were married, and our modest but happy home, filled with the warmth of shared memories and quiet laughter, was suddenly invaded. Bethany arrived with her 2 children from a previous marriage. Chloe, then 16, a preening socialite with a perpetually bored expression, and Mark, 14, who already possessed the entitled swagger of a trust fund baby. Despite having no trust fund to speak of, from day one, there was a clear divide. Bethany had extravagant tastes and constantly complained about our quaint home and simple lifestyle. Our comfortable lived-in house was rapidly transformed into a cold, sterile showcase filled with fragile, expensive objects that felt more like museum pieces than furniture. Dad, still healing from losing Mom and clearly smitten with Bethany's dazzling, demanding presence, began working longer hours, sacrificing his own well-being to afford the lifestyle his new wife expected. Our cozy movie nights and weekend adventures disappeared, replaced by exclusive country club memberships, charity galas I was too young to attend, and endless, costly renovations designed to make our home more presentable for Bethany's elite clientele. Chloe and Mark made no effort to hide their disdain for me. They attended exclusive private schools, drove luxury cars bought with Bethany's commissions, and made sure I knew how superior their education, their friends, and their designer clothes were compared to my public school life and my thrift store finds. When I got straight A's, Chloe would dismiss it with a flick of her perfectly manicured hand. "Well, public school standards are so much lower, darling. Anyone can ace those." Mark, a master of subtle sabotage, would accidentally spill soda on my homework or borrow my art supplies without asking and return them damaged, claiming they were just cheap public school stuff anyway. But what hurt most was how Bethany gradually, insidiously, turned my father against me. It was subtle at first. Little comments about how I should be more refined, like Chloe, or questioning why I was so difficult, when I simply wanted to maintain some of our old traditions, like our Sunday breakfasts at the local diner. Dad, once my champion, began to see me through her eyes, as somehow lacking, needing improvement, an inconvenient reminder of his past life. By the time I graduated high school, I felt like a stranger in my own home. a ghost haunting the hallways of a life that was no longer mine. The final blow came the summer after my senior year. Bethany convinced Dad to remodel my bedroom into a sprawling state-of-the-art home gym while I was away at a summer coding intensive. My belongings were unceremoniously dumped into the much smaller guest room, without so much as a consultation. "You should be grateful, Anna," Bethany had purred when I returned, shocked. "This room has much better lighting for your complexion, and it's right next to the powder room. Far more convenient for guests." I stood there, amidst my displaced boxes, a profound sense of betrayal settling deep in my bones. The day I turned 18, I moved out. Dad seemed torn. His eyes clouded with a fleeting guilt, but ultimately sided with Bethany when she called me dramatic and ungrateful. I left without looking back, a quiet promise forming in my heart. I would never again depend on anyone for financial security. I had saved every penny from my part-time jobs, and the few scholarships I earned covered most of my college tuition. I worked tirelessly, fueled by a fierce independence. In college, studying computer science at Stanford, I discovered my true calling, not just coding, but the intricate art of building digital worlds. My mind, which had once found solace in drawing and design, now saw endless possibilities in algorithms and user interfaces. I spent countless nights hunching over my laptop, fueled by lukewarm coffee and an unwavering vision. I created a platform that seamlessly connected independent digital artists and designers with clients seeking bespoke immersive experiences. Think virtual reality tours for real estate, augmented reality filters for fashion brands, or interactive installations for art galleries. It was niche, ambitious, and utterly groundbreaking. What started as a class project, a desperate attempt to channel my suppressed creativity, grew rapidly. The early days of Auraverse were a brutal gauntlet of sleepless nights and relentless coding. My dorm room, then later a cramped shared apartment in Palo Alto, became my sanctuary and my battlefield. I remember one particularly grueling week when I survived on instant noodles and pure adrenaline, trying to debug a complex rendering engine for a client's virtual museum exhibit. The lines of code swam before my eyes, but I pushed through, driven by an insatiable hunger to prove myself. I didn't just want to build software. I wanted to build experiences, to blur the lines between the digital and the real. I was obsessed with creating truly immersive environments that transcended traditional screens. This was more than a job. It was a mission. My breakthrough came with a prototype for an AI-driven interactive storytelling platform. It was clunky, unpolished, but the core concept was revolutionary. An AI that could dynamically generate narrative pathways based on user input, creating personalized, evolving stories. It captivated a small group of venture capitalists who saw its potential far beyond entertainment. For education, for training simulations, for therapeutic applications. They invested not just money, but their faith in my vision. By graduation, Auraverse was no longer just a project. It was a burgeoning startup. By 25, we had gone national. Our innovative solutions revolutionizing the digital creative landscape. Our flagship product, the Reality Weaver, an augmented reality development kit, became an industry standard. We started attracting top talent, brilliant engineers, and artists who shared my passion for pushing the boundaries of digital possibility. I drove myself relentlessly, driven by the memory of every dismissive glance, every condescending remark. That quiet anger was a powerful fuel. By 28, we had expanded internationally, with offices in New York, London, Tokyo, and Dubai. Last year, I sold a controlling interest to a major tech conglomerate, walking away with 11 figures in my bank account, while maintaining strategic control over Auraverse's core operations. Today, at 28, I run a tech empire valued at over $5 billion. A quiet force in the digital world. Yet, despite all this success, I kept it hidden from my family. I maintained a simple, rented apartment in Venice Beach that I used during my visits to Los Angeles, a stark contrast to my sprawling penthouses in New York and London. I drove a rented mid-range car when I saw them, a nondescript sedan that blended into the LA traffic, while my custom electric hypercar sat in my private garage in San Francisco. I dressed modestly, choosing comfortable, high-quality but unbranded clothing that spoke of practicality, not luxury. I never posted on social media, my public profile carefully curated to reflect a modest freelance tech consultant. My executive team, a loyal group of brilliant minds who respected my privacy above all else, ensured that my identity remained largely obscured. Business publications, when featuring Auraverse, used an old, deliberately unglamorous college photo of me, and I rarely granted interviews. This way, my father and stepfamily had no idea. This charade, initially a shield for self-protection, had evolved into a profound test. If they couldn't respect and love me as a moderately successful web designer, my carefully crafted cover story, then they didn't deserve to share in the fruits of my actual, monumental success. Every Christmas, I return home, bearing thoughtful but inexpensive, handmade gifts, enduring their condescension and barely veiled disappointment. Each year, I told myself it would be the last, but something always pulled me back. A lingering hope that my father would finally see through Bethany's manipulations, or perhaps a stubborn, childish fantasy that we could somehow, magically, be a real family again. This Christmas, however, felt different. 3 months ago, Dad had a minor heart attack. He recovered fully, thankfully, but the incident shook me to my core. Life was short, fragile, and utterly unpredictable. Maybe it was time to stop the charade. Not to gloat, not to seek revenge, but to reclaim my dignity, to honor the girl who had been pushed out, and perhaps, just perhaps, to rebuild an honest relationship with my father before it was truly too late. The Bel Air mansion looked like something ripped from a holiday magazine cover, a fantastical gingerbread house for the ultra-rich. White lights traced every architectural feature, massive wreaths hung on the double doors, and through the expansive windows, I could see the enormous Christmas tree glittering in the foyer, reaching almost to the vaulted ceiling. Dad had owned a comfortable home before Bethany, a place filled with laughter and love. But after they married, they quickly upgraded to this 7-bedroom monstrosity in the most exclusive neighborhood in town, a monument to Bethany's insatiable desire for status. I parked my rented Toyota Camry between Chloe's gleaming Mercedes G-Wagon and Mark's custom BMW M4, feeling the familiar knot tighten in my stomach. My real car, a bespoke electric hypercar, currently sat in my private garage in Silicon Valley, a silent testament to the vast chasm between my perceived reality and my actual existence. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my handcrafted presents from the passenger seat. A watercolor painting I'd done of the Santa Monica Pier for Dad, a handmade leather-bound journal for Bethany, a futile gesture, I knew, and some artisanal candles for Chloe and Mark. I approached the front door, the festive music and laughter already spilling out into the cool night air. Bethany answered my knock, her perfectly sculpted smile, a tight, practiced curve that didn't quite reach her cold, assessing eyes. She was draped in a shimmering emerald green designer gown, a diamond necklace glinting at her throat. "Anna, darling, you made it." Her voice was like polished ice, smooth, cold, and utterly devoid of warmth. She gave me a fleeting air kiss on my cheek, careful not to smudge her perfect makeup. "Do come in. We were just about to start toasts. Chloe, darling, help Anna with her things." Chloe, stunning in a scarlet cocktail dress, emerged from the living room, a champagne flute in her hand. Her eyes skimmed over my simple cashmere sweater and tailored trousers, then landed on my humble gifts. A barely perceptible sneer touched her lips. "Oh, Anna. Still with the handcrafted treasures, I see. How quaint. Mark, come help Anna with her little boxes." Mark, looking bored in an expensive suit that seemed too tight across his inflated ego, ambled over. He took the gifts with exaggerated care, as if they might spontaneously combust. "Right, more artisanal delights. I suppose they'll fit in the charity donations pile. We're doing a massive toy drive this year for underprivileged kids. Perhaps these can go there? He winked at Chloe, who giggled, a sharp, brittle sound. I felt a familiar sting, but I held my composure. They're for you, I said, my voice calm. I made them. Thoughtful. Not expensive. Oh, we know, Bethany chimed in, sweeping past me into the lavish living room, already filled with dazzling guests. It's the thought that counts, isn't it? Especially when one is on a limited budget. She chuckled, a trill of dismissal, and turned to greet a prominent Hollywood producer. My father, David, emerged from a cluster of guests, his face etched with a fleeting, uncharacteristic anxiety. He still looked weary, despite his recovery. He embraced me warmly, a genuine hug that, for a moment, made the coldness of the room recede. Anna, so glad you're here, sweetheart. How's your little web design business doing? Still managing to keep the lights on? He patted my arm, his concern a mixture of genuine paternal affection and a subtle Bethany-induced pity. It's doing well, Dad, I replied, my smile unwavering. Busy as always. I didn't elaborate, he didn't ask. He just nodded, distracted, already being pulled back into Bethany's orbit by a sharp glance from across the room. The evening unfolded in a dizzying parade of excess and casual cruelty. Chloe recounted her latest triumph in high-end real estate, dropping names of celebrity clients and boasting about her six-figure commission checks. Mark, between sips of expensive champagne, pontificated on his groundbreaking crypto venture, which I knew from my industry contacts was little more than a thinly veiled Ponzi scheme. Each story, each anecdote, was subtly aimed at highlighting their own perceived brilliance and my quiet, unglamorous existence. Honestly, Anna? Chloe drawled, looking me up and down over the rim of her flute. With your coding skills, couldn't you at least get a job at a big tech firm? Google? Apple? Something with a proper salary, benefits, and actual prestige? This freelance stuff is so precarious. I prefer the flexibility, I said, taking a sip of sparkling water. And I'm quite content with my work. Contentment doesn't pay for a jet-set lifestyle, darling, Bethany interjected, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Or a decent car. I mean, we saw your rental outside. A Camry? Really? Even our cleaning lady drives a Tesla now. A ripple of polite, condescending laughter spread through the small group gathered around us. Mark scoffed. Anna, Dad, and Bethany were just talking about how much space this house has. We could really use that guest room you're always staying in. Perhaps you could find a nice, affordable Airbnb when you visit? It would free up a lot of space for our expansion plans. He gestured grandly towards the guest wing, which included my old, downsized room. The casual dismissal of my space, my presence, felt like a physical blow. They weren't just mocking my perceived lack of wealth, they were trying to erase my very connection to this family, to this home, to my past. The hope I had carried, the quiet wish that my father might somehow see through their manipulative veneer, began to fracture. He stood beside Bethany, nodding along, his smile weak, his eyes distant. It was clear. He was lost to me. As the night wore on, the alcohol flowed, and the inhibitions loosened. The comments grew sharper, more direct. Dad, Chloe said, slurring slightly, her arm draped possessively around David's shoulder. I still can't believe you let Anna go to public school. I mean, no offense, Anna, but it's just so obvious in the way you present yourself. No polish, no ambition, just quiet. It's almost like you're trying to hide. She laughed. A loud, grating sound. Oh, she tries, darling, Bethany said, her voice laced with venom, ignoring David's faint attempt to interject. She tries to seem humble, but honestly, it just comes across as provincial. One can't truly make it in this city without understanding the value of presentation. A modest apartment in Venice? A rented Camry? It simply doesn't scream success, does it? It screams struggle. She gestured with her diamond-laden hand, dismissing me as if I were a speck of dust on her designer gown. Mark, emboldened by the alcohol and his mother's cruelty, stepped closer. It's a bit sad, really, isn't it? All that brainpower wasted on being a glorified webmaster. You should have invested in crypto like a real visionary, Anna. Made some actual money. He puffed out his chest, completely oblivious to the irony. That was it. The final splintering of my patience. The last vestiges of hope for a genuine connection with this family evaporated. My father, my once loving, protective father, stood there, silent, allowing his new family to tear me down piece by piece. The illusion was shattered. I took a deep breath, the laughter and chatter of the party fading into a distant hum. My voice, when it came, was calm, almost unnervingly so, cutting through the festive din like a laser beam. You're right, Mark. My brainpower was indeed invested, but not in your speculative crypto scams. And Chloe, my modest presentation isn't a sign of struggle. It's a choice. A test, actually. Silence descended, swift and absolute. All eyes turned to me, their expressions shifting from condescension to a bewildered curiosity. Bethany's smile faltered. Chloe's champagne glass paused halfway to her lips, then shattered on the polished marble floor. Mark choked on his drink, sputtering. The party guests, a who's who of Los Angeles society, suddenly became acutely aware of the drama unfolding, their polite smiles replaced by open-mouthed stares. A low murmur spread through the room. And Mark, I continued, my gaze sweeping over him, you're fascinated by actual money, aren't you? My company, Auraverse, just finalized its Series E funding round last month. It's an AI-driven creative agency specializing in immersive digital experiences. We're valued at over $5 billion. My personal stake? Enough to buy this mansion, your luxury cars, and Chloe's entire real estate portfolio, 10 times over, and still have plenty left for philanthropic endeavors. I smiled, a genuine, chilling smile that held no warmth. So, no, I didn't invest in crypto. I built something real, something lasting. I paused, pulling out my phone. With a few taps, I opened an app. A live feed glowed on the screen, showing the tarmac of Van Nuys Airport, a private jet runway usually reserved for the elite. I turned the screen towards them, allowing them to see the pristine white jet, its tail emblazoned with a subtle, abstract logo, being readied for departure. Chloe, you mentioned my car. You're right, a Camry is quite modest. My personal vehicle, however, is a custom electric hypercar. It's currently in San Francisco, but my pilot just confirmed the private jet I use for interstate travel has landed at Van Nuys. My team should be there now, preparing it for my immediate departure. It's a Gulfstream G650, by the way. Fully customized, long range. Quite efficient for a struggling web designer. I paused again, letting the words sink in, watching their faces contort in utter disbelief. Some guests, recognizing the model of the jet, gasped. Others pulled out their own phones, frantically searching. Bethany's face was a grotesque mask of shock and fury. This is outrageous. A lie. You're just a bitter, jealous girl. You're making this up. Her voice, usually so composed, was now a strangled screech. I simply raised an eyebrow. Am I? Check the latest Forbes 40 Under 40 list, Bethany, or the recent tech industry reports. Auraverse is quite hard to miss now. My face may be obscured in official photos, but the company name is certainly public. And perhaps, I added, my gaze fixed on her, you should have done a little more research on your poor stepdaughter before you started boasting about your exclusive real estate connections. Many of your biggest clients are actually my direct competitors. Or, more accurately, companies that wish they were my competitors. A wave of murmurs rippled through the guests. Many of them were, indeed, involved in the tech or luxury real estate sectors, and the name Auraverse, even if not my face, would be instantly recognizable. David, my father, stood paralyzed, his face ashen, a flicker of understanding finally dawning in his eyes, mixed with horror and a profound sense of shame. He started to stammer, Anna, sweetheart, what is all this? This, Dad, I said, my voice softening slightly as I turned to him, though the edge of steel remained, is the truth. The truth I've kept hidden for years. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I wanted to know if any of you would love me, would accept me, would value me, without the trappings of wealth, without the pressure of presentation. Just for being Anna. My voice broke slightly. You failed that test, Dad. Spectacularly. I felt a profound shift in the atmosphere. The guests, who had initially been shocked, were now openly watching, some with newfound respect, others with thinly veiled schadenfreude. Bethany, realizing the public spectacle unfolding, attempted to regain control. Security! Get her out of here! She's causing a scene! No need, Bethany, I said, my voice calm. My security team is outside. I've arranged for a car to take me directly to Van Nuys. I won't be needing the guest room, Mark. Or your charity pile, Chloe. And Bethany, your advice on presentation is no longer necessary. My authenticity is my strongest asset, not a struggle. As I turned to leave, David lunged forward, a desperate plea in his eyes. Anna, wait! Please, we can talk about this. Don't leave. I stopped, turning back. My heart ached. A deep, familiar wound. There's nothing left to talk about, Dad. You chose your path. You allowed me to be dismissed, humiliated, and erased, not by strangers, but by your own wife and her children. You stood by and watched. That silence spoke volumes. I looked at Bethany, Chloe, and Mark. Their faces contorted with a grotesque blend of shock, fury, and dawning horror. Mark's jaw hung open. Chloe was openly weeping, mascara running down her scarlet cheeks. Bethany simply stared, her diamond necklace seeming to mock the hollowness in her eyes. You called me poor. You called me provincial. You called me a struggle. You tried to erase me. But I assure you, you couldn't be more wrong. And now, you all have to live with the truth. I walked towards the front door, leaving a trail of shattered illusions and stunned faces. As I stepped out into the cool night air, the flashing lights of a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. My head of security, a former Special Forces operative named Marcus, stepped out and opened the door. The sound of excited murmuring and furious whispers spilled from the open mansion door behind me. I turned back one last time, looking at the glittering mansion, now a symbol of superficiality and betrayal. I didn't see a home. I saw a cage, and I had just flown free. The drive to Van Nuys Airport was short, peaceful. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications, frantic messages from Bethany and Chloe, desperate calls from David, and a flurry of texts from industry contacts, all congratulating me on my bold move and unveiling. I ignored them all. My focus was on the sleek, powerful Gulfstream G 650 waiting on the tarmac, its engines a quiet hum of promise. As I boarded, my pilot, a seasoned professional with years of experience, greeted me. Ready when you are, Miss Vance. Ready, Captain, I replied, a profound sense of peace settling over me. The jet ascended smoothly, carrying me above the twinkling tapestry of Los Angeles. I looked down at the city, at the endless sprawl of lights, knowing that somewhere down there, a family was reeling from a truth they had desperately tried to bury. But that wasn't my concern anymore. My concern was my future, unburdened by their judgment, unhindered by their deceit. In the weeks and months that followed, the fallout was immense. The story of Anna Vance, the stealth billionaire who revealed her identity at a Christmas party, spread like wildfire across social media and financial news outlets. Forbes and Bloomberg ran features on Auraverse, finally putting a public face to its enigmatic founder. The internet, with its insatiable appetite for drama and success, dissected every detail. Memes featuring my quiet departure from the mansion, juxtaposed with images of my private jet, circulated widely. Bethany's luxury real estate business suffered a catastrophic blow. Who would trust an agent who so openly mocked and underestimated one of the wealthiest women in tech? Her elite clientele, many of whom were now deeply embarrassed to have been associated with her, began pulling their listings and taking their business elsewhere. Her carefully cultivated reputation, built on an illusion of grandeur, crumbled. Her firm faced multiple lawsuits from disgruntled investors in Mark's crypto scheme, which imploded spectacularly shortly after my reveal, its fraudulent nature exposed. Mark faced federal charges for securities fraud. Chloe, whose social media life was an open book, became a target of ridicule and anger, her past condescending posts resurfacing to haunt her. She lost endorsement deals and saw her influencer career evaporate overnight. David, my father, tried repeatedly to contact me, but I maintained my distance. The wound was too deep, the betrayal too profound. He had allowed them to break me, and some things, once shattered, could not be pieced back together. He lost clients at his architectural firm due to the public scandal, and the financial strain of Bethany's failing business and Mark's legal woes pushed them to the brink. They were forced to sell the Bel Air mansion, the monument to Bethany's ambition, at a significant loss. I heard through the grapevine that they eventually downsized dramatically, retreating from the spotlight they once craved. But amidst the chaos, something beautiful emerged. My loyal team at Auriverse, who had always believed in my vision and respected my privacy, rallied around me. My Uncle Ben, an old family friend and a true tech pioneer who had mentored me since my college days, became my rock. He had known about my wealth for years, a quiet confidant who had seen me through every challenge, every doubt. He didn't judge me for my test, only supported me as I navigated the difficult aftermath. We spent long hours discussing Auriverse's future, and he reminded me of the core values that had driven me from the start. "You built this, Anna," he'd said. "Not for them, but for you. And for the possibility it represents." His unwavering belief was a balm to my raw emotions. I also found strength in unexpected places. The story resonated with countless individuals who had faced similar dismissals from family members who valued wealth and status over genuine connection. My email inbox flooded with messages of solidarity, of shared experiences. I began to speak publicly, not about my wealth, but about authenticity, about setting boundaries, and about the insidious nature of emotional and financial manipulation. I established the Vance Foundation for Authentic Living, dedicating significant resources to supporting young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds and providing legal aid to individuals fighting against financial exploitation, especially within family contexts. Our programs focused on digital literacy and self-advocacy, empowering people to protect themselves from the very types of deceit I had endured. My life wasn't just about managing a multi-billion-dollar empire anymore. It was about building a legacy of integrity, of empowering others, of creating a future where authenticity was celebrated, not ridiculed. The scars of betrayal remained, faint but present, like the complex, beautiful lines of code that underpinned Auriverse, reminders of the fierce battle fought and decisively won. But they were overshadowed by a profound sense of peace, self-worth, and unshakable freedom I had found. I learned that true strength isn't about being unscarred, but about how you carry your scars, how you transform pain into purpose. The message I carry, the wisdom etched into my very soul, is this: never let others define your worth, especially when their definition benefits them. Never allow your kindness or generosity to be mistaken for weakness. And never, ever, let anyone take what is rightfully yours: your dignity, your peace, your self-respect, your legacy, just because they are called family. Sometimes, the most powerful act of love is also the most profound act of self-preservation. When you finally stand your ground, when you dare to say no to injustice, even when it comes from your own blood, you don't just reclaim your property or your finances. You reclaim control over your entire life, over your narrative, over your future, and that, I assure you, is the most profound victory of all. I had given them what they truly deserved: the stark, undeniable opportunity to live with the consequences of their own choices, unburdened by my silent strength, unhindered by my presence. And in doing so, I had finally given myself what I truly deserved: a life lived on my own terms, free, whole, and imbued with a renewed purpose. The silence they sought to impose on me became the very space where my truth could finally, gloriously echo through the ages. My legacy would not be defined by their betrayal, but by my resilience and by the strong ethical foundation I built for Auraverse, ensuring it would continue to flourish for generations to come, built on loyalty, integrity, and innovation, not on lies.